I'd like to welcome everybody today as we celebrate the 6th induction ceremony for the Thomas Glasser Hall of Achievement. We're looking very forward to recognizing tonight's 5 student athletes from Haverford, and I can't tell you how excited we are that all of the friends, family, and the members of the Haverford community can join us tonight to recognize these 5 inductees. So welcome, and to start tonight's festivities, I welcome Dan Weiss, President Dan Weiss, to the mic.
Hello and welcome. It's good to see all of you. Wendy asked me if I would speak for about 50 minutes about the history of the college's tradition. I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to join my colleagues in welcoming all of you and in celebrating all of you, but particularly the honorees this evening. Athletics have enjoyed a very special place in Haverford, and I have to say, frankly, one of the reasons I was so attracted to coming here is because the clarity of this institution's mission, the role of athletics, and the role of other components of the student experience here are so healthy and well developed that I was very proud to be part of a community that does that. We do athletics here as well and as thoughtfully, as educationally sensibly as any institution in the country. And so we honor tonight those recipients for outstanding achievement, but we'd also reflect on the importance and value of athletics to the personal development and educational experience of everyone who participates in that. That's why we do sports here. That's the reason we do them, and we do them so well in that way. So we celebrate excellence today, but we also celebrate those achievements, and I want to congratulate our honorees and also tell you how honored and proud I am to be a member of this community. I'm just completing my first year at the college, and it has been a very full, rich, stimulating, wonderful year. I've learned a lot. We've had some adventures. We've accomplished a lot, and I would rather be nowhere else in the world than here. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend. The weather is excellent. The company is superb. The food will be equally good, so if you have any complaints, I don't want to hear about it. Thank you all. Congratulations. Have a wonderful weekend.
We have the opportunity not only to recognize this year's 5 inductees, but it also gives us the opportunity to remember and recognize Thomas Glasser, whose name of all achievement is named in his honor. And we're especially thankful this year that we have so many members of his family with us. I'd like to thank his mom, Ann, and his widow, Meg, and his 2 sons, Lucas and Dylan, and his brother-in-law, Sam. We're so glad you could all join us this year. And our first speaker tonight is Kevin Foley. He is, in fact, himself a Hall of Achievement inductee and a very storied and famous or infamous student athlete in Haverford annals. And Kevin Foley, come on up.
Thanks, Wendy. I get invited to this event every year, which is an unbelievable privilege, because my best buddy, Tom Glasser, can't be here himself. And I just want to tell you a little bit about Tom and why the Hall of Achievement is named after Tom. It was his idea and something that he felt strongly that Haverford should honor its athletes. And, you know, it raises the question, the Hall of Achievement is named after him. Is he, like, in it, or is he, you know, was it? So I want to tell you a little bit about him as an athlete. He was the best pure athlete I ever knew. He was on the track team and the cross-country team with me and my teammates. And he was our perennial biggest point getter. He could do everything. And he ran, like when we beat Swarthmore, he ran, you know, I don't know if he ever ran the 100, he ran the 200, the 400, the mile relay, the high jump. So this guy was a Academia Games gold medalist in the 4x400. he was the perennial conference champion in the high jump. And he was an NCAA qualifier in the 800 meters. And he and I ran on a winning 2-mile relay team for the New York AC after we graduated at the Milrose Games. And that's a ridiculous combination to be a high jumper and a 400 meter or 800 meter runner. Tom was the funniest person that anybody who knew him ever knew. And he had just a gigantic personality. And I followed him from Haverford to New York out to Wall Street. And he had so many friends, and he had, you know, I used to say he was like the Thin Man, William Powell, because he had all these characters with nicknames for him. If he knew that this Hall of Achievement was named after him, he would have been so pumped. And he would have relished the opportunity to meet the inductees into the Hall of Achievement. So, on behalf of Tom and his family, I just want to say congratulations to the inductees and welcome.
Our first inductee tonight is Evan Jones. He competed in soccer, track and field, and cricket while at Haverford, but is being especially recognized tonight for his soccer performance. And in our first for the Hall of Achievement, Evan is not able to be with us tonight. He lives in London and was not able to get here, but we're very fortunate that Anne Figueredo just happened to be over in England this spring and met with Evan. So we'll actually have a part of Evan with us in a few minutes. But first, to present Evan's award tonight, we have a classmate and teammate of his, Jim Wood.
It's wonderful to be here, and I must say that the food has considerably improved since I was here. We did have dinner here. We had breakfast, lunch, and dinner here, but it's quite a difference. You've got a picture here of Evan in this booklet, and I would encourage everybody to read it. And not that I've been having graduated here, I can read, but I think that your time would be much better spent if you read this than if I did. Evan was a wonderful guy, is a wonderful guy, although I haven't seen him in 50 or more years. He was born in Hector's River, Jamaica. And I don't know how many of you have been to Jamaica, but Hector's River is a long way from nowhere. And I guess Port Antonio is the closest, but he was born to obviously his father, and his mother, who was a Quaker missionary from Iowa, came to Jamaica, and they operated a banana and coconut plantation. And this was a huge plantation. It's very steep hills, and right next to it was a little Quaker missionary school, probably on their land, called Happy Grove School. And so when we were down there, we were looking around, and here were all the kids playing soccer, and they all played without any shoes, and they raced around, and Evan and his brother would have played soccer with them, and those kids really knew how to play soccer. But I will read a couple of things. One is actually both from the 1949 yearbook. This is a picture of Evan. I think when you see the screen, he's aged well, but he doesn't have as much of his nice black hair as he did then. But in the caption, it said, home Jamaica BWI. It majored in English, soccer, 1, 2, 3, 4, captain, 3 and 4. Track, 1, 2, 3, 4. Cricket, I don't know what happened in his freshman year in cricket, but he did play cricket the second, third, and fourth year. And obviously he was at the varsity club all 4 years, as well as debating in the Spanish club, and he was president of the Spanish club in his senior year. Underneath the caption, it says, Ev, the deadly boot that scored 50 goals, woos his women with Macbeth. Now take my paper on Person, poet and songster call from the cricket field to pitch it as a high jumper. I loathe inconsistency, authority on the Jamaican rum industry, and hopes for a look at Oxford's spires. And when you do read this, you'll find that he did go to Oxford, one of the Oxford colleges, and has been a very successful writer, poet, author of children's books and others in the intervening years. And now I'd like to read an excerpt from the yearbook. It talked about soccer as it was played then, and there are a few pictures if anybody's interested. Ed Reddington, Ed was the coach, and he was succeeded by the wonderful Scott Jim Mills. It says, Ed Reddington realized the potential of his squad and did all that any coach could do to guide and goad them on to the championship they wanted. In his best moments, witness the Lehigh game, which we won 4-2. It was a great team, but the letdowns, as in the Drexel game, we lost 2-1, revealed a team tendency to put on minimum effort. However, this is typical Howard. Call it the way it is. However, this psychological handicap could not restrain them from running through a successful season of 6 wins, 2 losses, and a tie. Captain Ev Jones, a great goal-getter, demonstrated his best form under pressure. In the sizzling setback, where we lost 8-3, inflicted by the University of Pennsylvania, Jones scored every Haverford tally. Again, Jones socked through the Ford's lone goal in the loss to Swarthmore, a heartbreaker 2-1. Sloppy weather hounded Ed Reddington's Hooters in the Princeton, Penn, and Swarthmore game, slowing up the powerful line. Both the crucial Garnet match for the league championship and the Princeton contest, which was a 2-2 tie, were memorably bitter last-minute sentences. Sparked by Captain-elect Andy Lucene and supported by the scrappy Cookie Reynolds, halfbacks proved to be a steady group, more outstanding in their defensive than offensive ability. Fullback Charlie Baby Bull Jeffrey hit his stride in the latter part of the campaign, coming across with characteristic crowd-pleasing breakup plays. The past season saw the last of 2 competent Scarlet and Black goalies, Tim Smith and Raz Warren, who provided very valuable capabilities under the worst possible conditions in the Swarthmore game. The league record of 24 goals to the opponent's 5 is a fair indication of the scoring punch and the defensive skill that was part of this team. And Jones was the captain in his junior and senior years and the leading goal getter, as you will see in this very good play. And now we will have a look at the Technology Works video showing that.
Well, I'm very moved and touched by this. There's a certain sadness in being told, well done, in your career and in your life, because you know there's a quality of epitaph in that. And I'm really not ready for an epitaph. But I enjoyed every minute at Harvard. I had very good friends there, played good football there, had good teachers there, and it stimulated my literary interest, my interest in becoming a writer, which I did. But also, it kept me aware of social problems. Digging the trees in Mexico was one thing, and after graduation, working with the Palestinian refugees. But I was brought up in Jamaica, where most people are very poor. And so the problems of the poor did not frighten me, but they kept me interested and hoping to help. I suppose becoming a writer is a much more selfish thing, because you're aiming for self-expression, whatever that is, finding out what it is you have in you to express. I did a couple of novels which are maybe good, maybe bad, I don't know. And then I got into the film industry. And I've spent most of my life writing films. And I hope some of them are very good films. I know that some of them are very good films.
So at age 86, this has been quite a year for you, with the Glasser Hall of Achievement and the Cannes Film Festival recognizing your work. Can you share with us just for a minute what it means to you to have been a graduate of Haverford College and to receive this award?
Well, to have been a graduate of Haverford College comes very high on the list, because it's such a wonderful place, and I had very happy times there. I had very good friends there. And very good teaching there, and good football, if I may mention it. And also the whole idea of the whole business of beginning life as a Quaker. My mother was a Quaker missionary. Now my father was Church of England, but it was her idea for me to go to a Quaker college. And she spent her life trying to live the gospel. And it made me easier to follow in her footsteps by going to Harvard. And developing it in different ways. I went to Oxford at one point after I got back from Palestine, and spent 2 years at Oxford studying English. I might as well just have gone into a library and read a book. Compared to Haverford, the education at Oxford University is almost nil. I shouldn't be saying that, should I? You may have to cook.
Oh, no, we'll do that. And is there a particular moment in soccer that you remember? I know that your life is much richer than the soccer alone, but with the Glasser Hall of Achievement recognizing student athletes, I would love to highlight for the audience a memory that you may have of one of your soccer games at Haverford that stands out. Is there a particular moment?
You're not recognizing something. The first thing that comes to mind is when I missed a shot against Princeton, which I should never have missed. I mean, we'd have beaten Princeton, which would have been Instead, we came out of it with a draw. But there are other times when
I'm relieved to know that purportedly the finest athlete at Harvard College in the history of time also had a moment where he completely duffed it.
you can't do it all the time.
That's right.
I remember beating Cornell. I scored 6 against Cornell. That was very pleasing. Because Harvard is only Harvard, isn't it? Cornell is a vast university on top of it. We beat them 6.
Is there any last thing you'd like to say to the other Glasser Hall of Achievement inductees before we cut the tape?
I want to say it's a privilege for all of us to have an association with Haverford. It's a great place and it has a great influence on one's life.
Great. So sorry he wasn't here. I'm sure he would have been just very animated and a great addition to this evening. But thank you very much to Ann for bringing part of him to us tonight. Our next inductee, David Stubbs, will be introduced by his former coach, Tony Zandon. Before Tony starts his speech, I did get a letter from one of David's former teammates, and I just want to read the last paragraph of it. We had a great 4 years playing together. Dave remains one of the all-time greatest scorers and greatest rebounders at the college. We won lots of games. We had adventures traveling to games in Florida and Virginia that are better left undiscussed than play company. But as great a player that Dave was, he was an even better leader, teammate, and friend. I can't think of anyone better to induct into the Harvard Hall of Achievement.
Thank you very much. I want to congratulate all of the honorees this evening. Having spent 15 years at Haverford, I know exactly how hard it is to play sports and to do your academics and to have the college life experience that you got while you were at Haverford. And I think it's a tremendous honor for each and every one of you to be recognized as important and as somebody who stands out in the field that you were in. I was especially pleased when Wendy called me and asked me if I would introduce David, or present David, because he epitomizes a lot of the things that we were looking for in our initial early years at Haverford College. That I was there and trying to develop a basketball team. I couldn't have been more happy to come up here if it had been one of my own sons. Because I felt David just really, really deserves an honor like this. My associations with David go back to 1973. I called his high school coach in Demarest, New Jersey, and I asked for any recommendations of student athletes who might be interested in Haverford, good basketball players in particular. And he gave me David's name. I got in touch with David, and I was really excited about it because, number one, Demarest High School was in Bergen County, New Jersey, which at that time was a hotbed of basketball in northern Jersey. Secondly, my wife graduated from Demarest High School, so I knew where it was and I knew a lot about it. I had coached in Bergen County for 5 years prior to coming to Haverford. So I took the trek up. I called David first, talked to him, and then I took the trek up to Demarest to see him play and to meet him in person. I was very, very impressed with everything that I saw. And particularly excited by the fact that David was willing to come down and see Haverford and apply to Haverford. When he applied and was admitted, that was a great day for us because I looked at David as being the person who would be the cornerstone of what we hoped would be a very, very exciting and good basketball team. And I just hit it right on the head as far as David was concerned because that team played probably some of the most exciting and good basketball that the Fords have ever seen. We probably one of the first teams at the college to travel to play against teams who were outside of its league. We were down in William and Mary, we played at Navy. We went up to Boston and played a number of games in the Boston area. We played down in Virginia. And we also went down to Florida several times during the winter break. Because in those days, Haverford College didn't have the beautiful facilities for athletics that they do now. We had the gym with the dirt track around it and the dirt field over there. And they wouldn't turn the heat on when school wasn't in session. So many days, nowadays they say, well, geez, I remember that run from the locker room down. But that was nothing because we had to practice for 3 hours in those facilities where the temperature never went above 50 to 52 degrees. And it was a hard thing to do. So we managed to gather some money together. We went down to Florida, and we'd stay for a week down in St. Petersburg area, and we'd play 3 or 4 games in that area. And I guess it was David's senior year. We had probably one of the wildest and craziest experiences on our way back up from Florida, because the coach got this idea that, hey, there's a great tournament at Lexington, Virginia, at Washington and Lee. They've got 4 really top teams there. And they've invited us to play, and I think it will be a great way to finish off the trip. Well, now you know that it's not easy to fly from Tampa, Florida to Lexington, Virginia. But we gave it a try. And the first leg of the flight wasn't bad, from Lexington to Atlanta. That's when it became exciting. Because in Atlanta we got what I call a double jumper. It had 3 stops between Atlanta and Lexington. One was in Knoxville, Tennessee, the next was in Tri-Cities, Tennessee, and the third was in Bristol, Tennessee, before we got into Lexington. Well, when we hit at Bristol, the pilot opened up the door to the cockpit, and from there I could see the windshield wipers trying to get the snow off the windows. And I said to the guys, I said, "Uh-oh, I think we're in trouble here." And he let us know that the trip would no longer continue, that since the Haverford team was on there and they needed to get to Lexington, the airport had secured a bus to drive us the 3 hours between there and Lexington. It was already 11 o'clock at night or 12 o'clock at night in the snowstorm. And the bus with the winding roads going through the mountains and everything, thank God we got there about 3 o'clock in the morning. But experiences like these are the ones that you'll never forget for the rest of your life. First of all, your life passed before your eyes on a couple of those turns. But, as a team, we developed a lot of camaraderie and a great friendship between the players. And in the early years of David's career, the friendships that we developed on some of these trips are what led me to believe that David was going to really be the cornerstone of that team and the player that we could build that team around. Number one, he's a great person. He was a lot of fun to be around. All the guys seemed to enjoy his company all the time. Secondly, he was a great basketball player. And mainly, he was a great leader on the basketball floor. All the other players on the team became better players because of the way David played the game of basketball. And thirdly, he was a great teammate because it didn't matter whether you were the last person on the team or the first person on the team, David was able to fit in and play the same way as you did. These are things that you just can't touch as far as the coach is concerned. And it comes from the individual himself, and that was David. Sure, while he was here, David set a number of records. I'm not going to read them off, just to say that he's tied for the third leading scorer in the history of the school at 1,461 points. He's the second leading rebounder in the history of the school at 871 rebounds. And Coach Morgan here said he must have taken a lot of shots. That wasn't true, because David didn't take a lot of shots. We had a couple guys on the team who had high scoring averages, and they didn't take more than 16 or 17 shots a game. Points were distributed throughout the team, and they really played together as a team, which is what everybody aspires to do, but not all the time will be able to do that. Through his career, David had to work very, very hard. Number one, he was only 6'4", and he had to play at a power forward position. So in many games, he was covering somebody who was 6'6", 6'7", or 6'8", but still he managed to excel. And I have to say that this is a real tribute to him, because he was never blessed with quick speed on the basketball floor. Best to be said is, I'll tell you a little story. When you got to play in tournaments, 14 tournaments, a lot of times you'll play one team one night, and then you'll be in one locker room. The next night, you'll be in another locker room. And that could be the locker room that the team you were playing against the night before was in. And occasionally you find a scouting report on your own team. Somebody picked up a scouting report on our team one night from one of the opposing coach the night before, and we started reading down through his descriptions of the players. Everybody was getting a charge out of it, so we got to David. And out of this description came one of his nicknames, Plod. Because the coach described him as saying, he's average when it comes to the push and shove game, but you absolutely have to get in front of him as he plods toward the boards for his rebounds. So he became known as Plod. But secondly, he had a very even-keeled personality. David would get excited. He loved playing basketball. He loved being around people. But he wasn't one of those guys who's going to be yelling and screaming at officials. He let that up to me. But one night, he did get a technical foul. And somebody said here earlier about something that was a Haverford play. Well, this was a Haverford technical foul because we're playing down at Johns Hopkins. Anybody that knows, you go down into Maryland and Florida, those are probably the two least favorite places to go with basketball officials because they just aren't any good. That's an easy way to say it. And David, down at Hopkins, in a very tight game, we're heading toward the last 4 minutes of the game, and makes a beautiful move, scores a basket to put us up by one. At that point, the official blows the whistle, takes the basket away, calls a charge on David. David, without yelling, without screaming, turned to the official and he said, "Mr. Official, you are an expert at, let me look at this. You're an expert at creative officiating." For that, he got his only technical foul. People have said a lot worse things and not gotten technical fouls, but that got his technical foul. And what did I say about David? He was an excellent shooter. Anywhere from the foul line extended in, he could hit the jump shot easily every time. But with a team that had a lot of good scorers on it, David could drive an opposing coach absolutely crazy by the way he did things. And we had one play, we faced a lot of box-and-one defenses in those days when somebody who was hot. So we had a special play for that. And we were playing Moravian College, I think it was your sophomore year, David. And Moravian College had a coach who was very, very excitable, a guy by Teddy Zawacki. I can still picture veins in his neck and his forehead bulging when something went wrong. And he was playing the box-and-one, and as was the case with David, he was an excellent screener. So he wasn't the one who we always set the play up for, but he always set a good screen for somebody else to score. You see, this is his unselfishness out on the floor. Never complained, always did the job that was necessary. On this particular play, we scored 3 baskets in a row. By now, the coach is going out of his mind over there, and he's screaming at the guys, "Get out on that guy, get out on him, don't let him do it." Well, on the very next play, I gave David the signal. I said, "David, when you set the screen, don't go inside, slide to the foul line extended." And with that, we faked the ball into the corner, and practically their whole team ran out into the corner, threw the ball to David. David put the ball in the basket. Their coach turned around and he kicked his folding chair and went about 4 rows up into the stands. Now, the very next play, I said, "Do the same thing again." Do the same thing again. David's ready to take, he got the ball and he took 2 steps to the basket to lay it in because there was nobody in front of him. With that, one of the players came back and just shoved him out of bounds. Should have been a personal foul. Official didn't call it. A guy by the name of Bill White. He lived in Margaret, I'll never forget it. And I said to Bill, "What in God's name are you doing?" The guy pushed him out of bounds. He said, "Coach, did you see how he reacted to this team the last time I called that they scored the basket? I was afraid that if I called a foul on that kid, he might kill him." I just couldn't do it. David took it with his natural good nature, didn't say a word, smiled, came back, and just kept playing. But as you go along, you really appreciate what David Stubbs was, and the type of player he was, the type of student he was. And we were very, very fortunate in Haverford College to have somebody like David in the years that I was there. And I can't tell you, David, how much I appreciate all the things that you did for the basketball team and the unselfishness that you showed in your 4 years there. Now, not only was David a good student, or a good basketball player, but he's also an excellent student. He graduated, went to the prestigious University of Pennsylvania Wharton Business School, graduated from there, moved to Connecticut, established a very successful business career with the Champion International Paper Products for over 20 years, married his lovely wife Carolyn, who I'm so happy to meet this evening, had 2 sons, Paul and Scott, who are with us this evening, and they seem to be just the same type of people that David is. When you can tell when you're talking to individuals where they came from, what kind of parents they came from. And I can guarantee you that meeting Paul and Scott tonight, I can tell that they came from David and Carolyn. They had an awful lot to do with it. So David, without anything else, it's really an honor and a pleasure for me to introduce you this evening.
Thank you, Tony, for that overly wonderful introduction. And thank you to the Glasser family, and it's an honor and a tribute to be inducted into a group named after Thomas, and with all the other people that have come before me. There's this picture that's in the folder of me. I have a couple of classmates that are here tonight that have looked at this picture and said, "You never got off that far off the floor in your life." And the story behind that is, this was our last regular season game, senior year. I wasn't blessed with great leaping ability, but on a good day, if I got warmed up enough, I could dunk the ball. And this was the last game, it was in the last half, the last game of the season. And the opportunity came, it was at midcourt, the guy was making a cross-court pass. I came across, intercepted it, was going down, and I'm going, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna dunk the ball in my college career, because it never happened before, and it sure as heck wasn't going to happen again. And I go up, and this picture is caught just as I'm going up, and my hands aren't all that big. And as I'm going up, I can feel it. As I said, it's coming out of my hand. I said, this is. I said, no, it's not going to happen. So I go up, I recover the ball, and just ended up laying it in. But that's about that. You're seeing here the closest I came in a game to the rim in history, and it was caught for posterity. So you're seeing it. As Tony mentioned, I had never heard of Haverford College until he contacted me and said, I'd like to come up and see your game, and I'd like to invite you down to the college. I came down, fell in love with the place. I mean, and having gone through it with both of my sons, I now recognize you kind of walk onto a place and you can read all the stuff that's in the brochures and the SAT scores and stuff, but it's when you step onto a campus and you get a feeling of community and a feeling of belonging, and that's what happened when I came here. And so came and started and was excited and going through it, and as Tony mentioned, I don't know that he actually really showed me in depth the facilities, but for those of you, I mean, first 2 years, I think, our locker room was in the basement of the old/Ryan gym, and we were playing in the field house, and that is a long walk maybe it was 30 degrees in the tunnel. And that's great after you've been running around for a couple hours. That's really good for your muscles when you make a long walk up that hill when it's 30 degrees out. And as Tony said, he's absolutely right. The Christmas breaks were just brutal. When we come back and practice, and you'd practice for 3 hours and never break a sweat because it was 50 degrees, so you broke a sweat and froze. So that. Yeah, when I said, I was going, okay, did I really make the right choice? This is a really good idea. But the freshman year, I'm going to talk about freshman year because freshman year was probably, we had more success in future years, but freshman year for me was the most exciting year. Mainly because the team was, Tony, his memory of these games, as you've heard, he's forgotten more things about our games than I remember. But I think you were, what was it, 2-16 the year before? Yeah, 2-18? Okay. So the year before our freshman year, we were 2-18, and it was a pretty, handful of people would show up to the games. And we came in and we would lose a few close ones, and we started to win a few games before a handful of people. And then I'll never forget Dave Engel, who was 2 years, was a junior when I was a freshman. And the two of us were walking up here after a game, and we went down into the coop. It was over here. And we went in, and somebody knew we were on the basketball team, and they said, what was the score? And I think we played Drew that night, and it was, I think we said, well, it was 83-68. And they said, oh, I'm sorry. And we said, we won. And they proceeded, you could just see that, you could have knocked them over with a feather because that was not what happened here. And as the year went along, we would win games and lose games, but we were being competitive in every game that we were in. And probably the highlight, there are some great games in the highlights, but actually the highlight for me was freshman year in the back-to-back Swarthmore games. Because the first game was at Swarthmore, and Swarthmore, Tony talked about playing against guys that are taller than you are, and Swarthmore had a great team that year, and they're from point guard to center. The entire team was like 6'5". That means everybody could jump, and we went over there the first week Saturday, and we lost. I think it was 49-18 at halftime or something like that, and we lost by like 45 points, and it wasn't that close. We were never in the game. So we come back the next Saturday, and we won enough games that people had showed up, and it was a full house. First one we played in front of, and we went out, and I think we had successfully lulled them to sleep because we just executed. We did the things. We played as good a game, as perfect a game as you could play, and we ended up with a 2-point victory, which just, and to me that was the kind of the turning point, one of the highlights. We had great games getting into the playoffs, but that was one of the highlights of my career. One of I think as Tony had said, one of the things that made the team great was the team. I think I scored as many points as I did is because when everybody else is covering Dick Voith, who's also an inductee here, I'm open a lot. And if I'm open enough, even I can make a shot. But we had 5 players and more, and we just outplayed and out-executed the teams that we went up against. So it was a great time, a great 4 years, and I think the greatest thing back to freshman year is that we really felt like we created some excitement in the community. Because as we went through the years and got better, people, going to our games became an event. People really liked it, they enjoyed it, and it really felt like we brought a lot to the community and a lot to the college. So it was a great time. This was one of the highlight periods in my life. It was a foundation building for me. They're great. I mean, it built friendships that have lasted for 40 years. And if it wasn't for this community and those people and the great times, the great stories, and the great friends, my life wouldn't be as blessed as it's been. So thank you for inducting me, and appreciate it. Thank you.
Our next two inductees are both women's tennis players, and I was fortunate enough to actually overlap with each of them while I was at Haverford myself. And I remember it seemed like you were always hearing about the next record that was broken in women's tennis. They were incredible players, and together just made an amazing legacy for women's tennis at Haverford College. And it's my pleasure to have them both inducted tonight together. And to honor them tonight is their former coach, Ann Cougar.
Well, congratulations to all of our inductees, family, and friends. This is a wonderful occasion, and it's always very special when your own recognizes you as being very special to the school and to the program. Patty Danella McMillan was my first blue chipper. And of course, I don't know if they still use that term or not, but she was definitely the boost to the program. I heard that the young ladies who were interested in tennis at Haverford College kind of stormed the athletic director and said, "We want tennis." There were 44 of them. And when I got here, of course, the skill level varied. And Patty came with her dad, looked around, interviewed, and I saw her credentials. I was like, "Oh, she'll never come here. She'll never come here." And lo and behold, she came. And I was so excited because she was definitely a compliment to the program, a compliment to the team. She was everything. And the players, they're some of the best alums that keep in touch with me. I mean, they were so close. And Patty immediately, if not on court, as well as off court, was a team leader, someone who they really looked up to, and she was the consummate team player. Always worried about not just her winning on the court, but everybody else doing well, having a good experience. Her leadership skills were just incredible. I don't know if she practiced them. I think it was a family kind of gene in her to be a leader. But she was just something else. And I can say bottom line is, we just had so much fun. There's nothing that's written in that program that can cover all of the accomplishments and the fun that we had as a team. And then of course, you'll hear a little bit more about the second blue chipper that came, Figman, and they were teammates. And that 2-year overlap period was just something special. Patty also had the distinction back in the prehistoric days of women's sports to be the first individual sport athlete to go to a postseason championship in a national organization called the AIAW, which is Association for women's sports prior to women being in the NCAA. And that was just such a special thing. And the championship was in Boston. And we went up there and played. We only went to the regional back then. There was no such a thing as a national championship. And it was just incredible that we had this blue chipper, student athlete, leader, team person, always worried about the next person doing well and carrying this history with her. And I just thought it was just something that was so special because I grew up in the days of, it was only the AIAW. The other distinction that she had, which was incredible, is being voted in the PAIW. They're all state organizations, all 50 states had AIW State Association. She was voted among all divisions, junior college, NAIA, the most outstanding tennis player for 4 years. The 4 years she was here in the whole Philadelphia area, which again, she was going against Villanova, Penn people, Division I, II. She was outstanding. And she had a reputation too, because many years afterwards, and I don't know why they thought that Patty would be here more than 4 years, but they always ask, you still have that girl, the one that just can't get her off the court and she beats everybody? I said, who do you mean? They said, that first blue chipper you had. I said, she graduated, my goodness. She's gone, but her reputation still carried on. And I can say that with her wonderful family and all of the people, her teammates, classmates, I'm happy to say that we're still friends with the family. She never forgets my birthday. Sometime I do. She never forgets my birthday. She never forgets a holiday. And she's just an incredible woman. And I'm just so happy that she is inducted. You can read about more of her accomplishments in the booklet. But like I said, I can make a booklet on Patty. Now, it was very interesting this year that my two captains knew that Amanda and Patty were going into the Hall of Fame, a Hall of Achievement here. And they didn't ask me about the accomplishments of these two women. They wanted some stories. And I was like, well, there's a lot of stories that I don't know if I can share them with you. It's a different day and a different age. They're like, no, tell us some stories that you can't tell. And I said, well, I can tell you some stories. I said, but some stories you're going to have to wait until you graduate because I don't know if you really need to know these stories as an underclassman. But we just had some wonderful times and wonderful experiences to share that I hope that they never forget because I will. So I'd like to present Patty Donnell McMillan to the stage.
I didn't know that there were going to be any comments, and I want you to know I'm a teacher, and on Thursday it was 4th grade orientation. I'm a 5th grade teacher, and I got plaudits for not speaking a lot. So I'm going to try to get plaudits again. What Aiden doesn't know was my senior year of high school, I essentially had given up tennis after the fall season. Tennis was not my first love. I loved football, American football. And my father did share that. My mother kind of didn't remember that. And then after that, soccer, which is football in Europe. So I have many people to thank, including Ann Koger and Amanda. But I wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for my brothers, for my father, for my family. So you have 2 older brothers. Your mother has 3 children in a very short period of time. You love your brothers. They're mean to you. You have to play against them in sports. And and you get good at being gritty. And gritty was what I was. So you could knock me down, I'd get back up, and I would come back for more. So I thank them. And then I have great genes from my father. Before I met Ann Koger, he was the best athlete I knew. So my father comes home, I'm a senior, I've essentially given up tennis, I was running, and I looked at 3 schools. I have to thank my brothers again. See, Dad was taking care of us because Mom had twins, and they were 12 years younger than I was. So we were all in the same family, but twins are a lot of work. So Dad needed a school that he could visit all 3 of us in a Saturday. So Roger was at Lafayette, David was at Ursinus. He drew a circle. And I was only allowed to play if it was within the circle. Then he came home with this news. Someone he worked with at Bristol Myers before it merged with Swing had a daughter going to a formerly all-male school. So I had 2 older brothers, tomboy wannabe. I wanted to be pre-med, I wanted to be a missionary doctor, I wanted to save the world. Came to Haverford in an English class. Abby Plum stole my heart. You know, I never took organic chemistry. Maybe when I get some free time, I would love to. So I took a gym class where we were doing tennis, and I played the #1 on the club team the year before. And the score was not very close. And they said, "Are you going out for tennis?" Hadn't thought about it. And the rest is all a product of Vancouver. Once I saw the brochure, I said, "What is she doing here?" I love Haverford, it's the best school. She and Tom Donnelly, and they are D1 written all over them. She was the first woman to officiate NCAA men's basketball, Pan American Games, Virginia Slims, one of the first African Americans to break the color barrier at Marion Cricket Club. I was basically in awe. And all I can say is, thanks be to God that I found this school, because I've been supremely blessed by the education that would have taught me about making the world a better place, by the role model that I had for Amanda, who helped to keep that love of tennis that came back to life thanks to Ann, because it was D3, we didn't have a lot of spectators. Lori has from Seattle, Washington, now to come, but she was a Bryn Martyr. I mean, we had to import. It was a great experience. We had the NCAA play here. We thought we had really made it. So it's really special as well to remember that today I'm among these amazing athletes. Amanda, just wonderful. My final 2 years, thanks to her, were amazing. But I think of some who aren't here, like one of our inductees, and the reason we have this whole induction. Not many people know Haverford. And sometimes my students will say, "Oh, you went to Harvard." Haverford, small, D3, it's near Villanova. So my son Daniel was a soccer player. My son Dave is a soccer player. When Daniel was playing for an elite group, PDA, one of the moms said, "Oh, you went to Haverford. I know someone from Haverford. It's the greatest guy." And that is Mr. And I said, I didn't know him. I knew some of his classmates, 2 who are no longer with us. Doug Gardner, a great basketball player, Calvin Gooding. I loved going to basketball games because my brothers had played basketball. And I think he let me ride with the team to Ursinus to visit my brother. And that's a whole other story. But there are a lot of great stories. But thank you, family, friends, for coming to share this night with your athletes, with those. There is something, as that wonderful Oxfordian said, there's just something about this place. And I am
the doubles, great doubles teams, and by the way, 2 varsity cup winners, they did overlap. And here comes the second blue chipper. And of course, more fun for the team, more leadership, more dedication, more devotion, and as Patty referenced, the first NCAA Women's Division III Tennis Championship at Haverford College. And of course, Penny Hinckley was our SWA then, and the rest of the tournament team consisted of Penny Hinckley and Ann Coker. And we ran around and did everything, plus coaching and getting those players to play. And that was just such an honor to host the championship. Hope you can get someone from your school to be in it. And we were. And not only that, Amanda also participated in Kalamazoo for the Nationals, as well as in Atlanta. And I still have our plastic memo cup that the writing's almost off of, but that's one of my treasures. And all my family says, "What is that plastic cup you have sitting in the window with all the paint almost off?" I said, no, you can't touch that. You can take anything else out of this window, but not that, because that's a very special memo there. Amanda, along with her sister, Division I championship material. I just knew she wasn't coming here either. I was like, my goodness, she can play any place. She can go anywhere. But thankfully, she, the family, thought that Haverford was a good choice. And I am so blessed to have both of them. Amanda, of course, took up the honors that Patty left over, being an outstanding Philadelphia area player. And not only that, both of them were all academic people, all conference people, and we were in another conference then called the MAC. Amanda won a championship in the MAC and a finalist, which was great. And I was wondering when they had some kind of honor, I was like, why didn't they know about Amanda back then? Well, I went to their website and they've lost almost all of their women's records, and I was like, such is the case back then, they didn't keep very good women's records in sports. But of course, Amanda was fabulous. And I think that one of the best matches that I ever saw her compete in was against the #1 player, who was a Division I transfer, Gina Pileggi, who went to the College of New Jersey, and has now become one of my good friends. They stole her from Haverford. I found out later on from Gina, who could have come to Haverford as well. But it was a fantastic player. She was highly ranked in the country, and they had some classic matches, and Amanda won that match. And she just cleaned her clock, and people still, a few years after, were asking about, do you still have that player on your team? I think it's about time she graduated. I was like, she's gone too, okay? And, you know, Amanda and Patty have set such a benchmark with all the things they contributed. They are the benchmark that I judge for student athletes that I recruit. I look at their qualities and I say, can they match up to Patty? Can they match up to Amanda? Are they team players? Do they show leadership? Can they play on the court? Can they win? And for both of them, are they tenacious? And that's what it takes in an individual sport, is to be tenacious and get that I'm not going to lose attitude, because if I do happen not to win, it's because somebody beat me, and I'm not a loser. So, Amanda, to the stage.
I'm going to echo the sentiments of David Stubbs and Patty Dinella, that Haverford is a very special place. And the reason I came here too was just walking around the campus and having my interview with Bill Ambler and just really falling in love with Haverford and thinking, there's so many nice people here, I just want to spend my 4 years here. I had no idea that Ann Coger was as amazing as she was. I mean, I didn't know that she was a circuit player on Virginia Slim, her as my coach. She was really somebody that could contribute to each match and help me find the weaknesses of my opponents and help me pull out the win. I'd never had an experience like that before where someone could really participate with me in the match, be with me present in the match, and help me turn the match around. It was a unique and really amazing experience. The thing too that I love so much about Coach Kober is that she was very powerful and strong and competitive. And she helped me bring those qualities to my match and really to the rest of my life as well. She had me walk tall. She's someone that was very powerful and frankly a little intimidating when I first met her. But very loving and maternal and sweet. And she took care of me for the 4 years that I was here as well. She would deal with all the politics that went on with some of the NCAA Division III nationals. She would tell them, you're not going to put her at that seed, she belongs here. She would stand up for me and take care of me, and I was really grateful for that. I was also so fortunate to come here with Patty Janelli here, and Patty had some of the same qualities as Coach Kober. She didn't take anything from anybody, and she was going to intimidate the opponents, even if she wasn't able to win the match, every match. And in particular, I remember Division III with Trent State and Debbie Daniels. And Patty used to wear these aviator sunglasses, and she would wear a ball cap. And for that match in particular, she pulled out her dog collar with the studs. And as Ann used to say, if she can't win the match, she's going to win the fight in the parking lot. So, Patty also, I mean, again, she's very similar to Coach Kober. She took care of me too. If somebody hit me when I was at the net, Patty, go after that person. She just really, I was so grateful to have both of them in my life, and really a lot of my success was due to them. I really got so much better as a player. I was a good high school player, but coming here with Ann Kober making me go to the net and play the volleys and really improving my game, I had kind of a transformative experience with my game, and I was so grateful and happy to have that. I really wasn't expecting it out of the Division III program. You know, I was here because I loved Haverford and I wanted to get a good education, but I was so grateful for the tennis and for the program. So this is a great honor. Thank you so much. Final inductee this year is Seamus McElligott, and for those in the room that were here when he ran here, it was an incredible experience, and he was an outstanding athlete, amazing to watch. And he presented tonight his former coach, Tom Holland.
I'd just like to add my congratulations to all the inductees tonight. I'm lucky that I got to see most of them. I missed Evan by a few years. That's but certainly well aware of what Amanda did, and I got to see 2 years of Dave's last 2 years here. Some amazing teams, some real good fights too when we played for science. Because the Trophy family lived right next to on 710. And their son played on the sciences team, so he was always over from Haverford to Hartford. It was always good. Kept it interesting. And probably my closest experience with many of the inductees, other than Seamus, was with Patty, where if you didn't go here, you might not be aware that we have a mandatory phys ed requirement, which is kind of ironic at a school like Haverford. But Tony actually established this phys ed course that was called bodybuilding. And what it did, it consisted of 3 things. You would go out and jog. In the course of each class, you would go out and jog, you would lift weights, and then you would play either some basketball or volleyball. So like I had one of these classes, this bodybuilding class, so I could do the lifting, I could fake the running a little bit. But I didn't know the rules of volleyball, so we played basketball instead of volleyball. And Patty Vanello took this class, this bodybuilding class. And so the first time playing basketball against her, I hit the ball and get this, get this. And someone was using the word tenacious and things like that. All these pretty synonyms for dirty. They were talking about that. So it was pretty easy to see why she was such a great athlete, because she just had a heart and desire, and she wasn't a dirty player, but she was in the bodybuilding place. But I'm here, just to say a few words about Seamus, who is the guy that I was privileged to coach for 4 years at Harvard. And I just wanted to tell one story about him, which I told last year when Seamus was inducted into the National Track and Field Hall of Fame, which is really an incredible honor. And the story isn't even about a race per se, but it was about Seamus warming up for a race. And the race was the national championship when he was a senior out in Vanilla, Iowa. And it was a national cross-country race. And Seamus had finished second the year before in the national race, which was an amazing breakthrough. And it was the first time he really sort of established himself in the consciousness of all the other athletes and coaches on the Division III level. So he came second, and then he followed that up by winning the indoor 5,000 meters at the national championship, and then winning 2 events afterwards. So going into this event his senior year, the cross-country nationals, he was a 3-time national champion. But that's like the hardest race to win, SJB, because he did it. But when we got out there, the guys on the team were smart enough to realize, Ken, you were there, right? He was out there. They were smart enough to realize that Seamus, as nice and gentle and loving that this guy was, when he took off, put their sweats on, to warm up for a race, took their sweats off to compete in a race, he was a different guy, just a different guy. So they wouldn't go near him, like in the hour before the race. But we brought an alternate out in case one of the guys happened to get sick at the last minute or they turn an ankle warming up, just so he put an extra guy in there. So our alternate was a guy named Dave Foreman. And Dave, was a really good runner, else he would have been out there. So he warmed up with Seamus just so he had somebody to go with. And afterwards, Dave said it was absolutely the hardest he ever ran in his life. Any race, nothing was as hard as that. This was the warm-up for nationals. And what the warm-up consisted of, it was a 5-mile course. So there was a 2 1/4 mile loop, a half-mile loop, and then you did the 2 1/4 mile loop again. So, I told our guys, warm up and see the big loop, do the 2 1/4 mile loop, and then you can walk the half-mile loop just to get an idea of what the course looks like. So Seamus went out with Dave, and they ran this thing. They ran it faster than any other competitor in the meet would run it an hour later. And Dave came back, and he said he was just like shattered. He was totally, it was the fastest he had ever run. And he said Seamus turned to him and said, "Let's do it again." Dave said he had to grab him and say, "Seamus, you gotta run this national race in half an hour." And he sort of shocked him back into reality. And then he kind of calmed down and went, did his stretching and did some strides and went out and just destroyed the field. Just went out and did it. But that's the kind of guy he was when he got into a race. He could get into a race with world-class runners, Olympians, Olympic medalists, and it would not even cross his mind to think that he wasn't going to win that race. He wasn't against a competition like that. But when he went up against the top Division III competition and a lot of the top Division I competition, he was the guy to be reckoned with. He just had that incredible attitude. He loved to compete. He just loved to compete. And the net result was he won 6 national championships, which was just an incredible feat. It's getting how hard that is. He won 3 of them. JB won 4. But to win 6 national championships was really something. But way beyond that was, just as the fact that one of his friends and teammates, people around school, anybody that met him, and, you talk, to Ken and Eric and him, and Ben, like his roommates who are here tonight, and we'll tell you some great stories about it. Just an awesome person, who left us too soon. But it's incredible how he still lives on in the sense, like, one of the events that Seamus won twice at Nationals was 5,000 meters in the outdoor national meet. Won the indoor 5,000 once also. But twice he won outdoors as a junior and senior. And we've had two other guys win that same event. J.B. Nyland, who's sitting right over there, won it in 2002. And just a week ago, Chris Stadler won it also. And, I was there for all three of them. Shane, four of them, I guess. Shane's won two, and these guys won it. And the first thing that crossed my mind when, JD was coming down the stretch, and the same thing as last week when Chris was coming down the stretch, it just flashed in my head, Seamus. Because, he's always there. He's always been part of this program ever since he was here, and he's, legendary among, all the guys that have followed here. So, his presence is really, it's actually tangible, and, we were just lucky to have him here, and, sure, just thrilled to have the opportunity to talk to his, like his mom, Sandra, and his brother, Sean, to come up and accept the award for Seamus.
I just wanted to thank Haverford College for what they've given to Seamus. And I just want to thank his friends for being here, Ben, Nim, Eric, Ken, Rob, and Darius, who have come. I haven't seen them for quite a long time. It's just been wonderful to have them here. And I want to tell you one little story about Seamus. You've heard about his run, but Seamus had a very generous heart. And this is one little story I want to tell you about. Seamus was walking out with all of his sweaters. And I said to him, Seamus, where are you going with all those sweaters? And he says to me, the Kenyan runners are all cold. They don't have any warm clothes. So he was taking all the sweaters that he had. And they all came to me, the Kenyan runners, and they said, and Seamus was one of the only Americans that really reached out to them. And, was befriended them while they were here in the U.S. And so that was very important to me. And one other little story about Tom Adolphe and how important Tom was to Seamus. It was at the Nationals. He was qualifying for the Nationals as a freshman. And it was Tom's wedding day. And so we didn't expect Tom to be there. And guess what? On a hot, salty day, there was Tom in his wedding gown, wedding costume, I should say. I had never seen him so well dressed in my entire life. And he had left his wedding to come and see Seamus qualify for Nationals at Princeton. And his wife, Kathy, is particularly wonderful and marvelous that she would allow us. But she once said to me, she said, going to Nationals with Seamus was her honeymoon. So that made up for it. But thank you again, Haverford College. And I am particularly grateful for this honor because it keeps Seamus alive in our memories, and as well as the Mid-Atlantic Conference that the awards that he got there and the NCAA awards that he's got. Thank you again.
is a special place. And it's events like this when we're able to recognize our alums, not just for their amazing accomplishments, but I think you got a really good sense from tonight, just what really good people they are, and reinforces what a special place this is. So one last round of applause for all our inductees. All of you again for joining us tonight in the celebration. Thank the Dining Center for letting Jim Wood know how much better the food is now. Our athletic department, Mr. Dr. Reed's not here, doing a great job with the program. Brian McAllister helped to organize tonight. Under the tent outside. So I hope you'll all join us and continue the celebration of our inductees.